Okay, guys, a little bit late on a Monday evening, but I can promise you what, I'm nothing if not spontaneous. Joined as always by Chris with a K and Jay. Guys, let the people know where they can find all your great content. We'll go straight down the line. Chris, then into Jay.
Hey, Horns Down Pod. You can find us on Twitter. Definitely find me, Chris with a K, on Twitter as well. Hey, season is coming up, so you know what that means. Everybody's really about to ramp up this content. Oh, look, I love recruiting just as much as the next person, but I'm ready for the season. I'm ready to get some football, man. Especially this first weekend. Ty, you know what we got to do. We got to talk sometime soon about those first couple of games coming up. That because that first week is going well, not week 0, but week 1 is going to be crazy. It's loaded. But yeah, with that being said, you can find us on YouTube and all your podcast platforms. Jay, what's up?
What's good, Jay Unfair Sports? Y'all know me. I'm always here. I'm a regular, and I love coming on talking, especially with Chris and Ty. We're gonna have some fun making the magic happen. So, what's good, everybody?
Man, and we have a lot to talk about. These last 2 weeks have been absolutely insane in recruiting. It was just a few weeks ago on the SEC Connect, we were talking about Florida, and it was like a week later, they went on this massive run, find themselves in the top recruiting classes in the nation. Oklahoma's starting to pick up some steam, pick up some momentum. Texas went on a run. Bama looks like they're in the process of flipping some guys. There is a lot going on right now. We need to get into it all. Where to begin? And look, I think right now we're going to start with some Oklahoma recruiting because this is where we were at in the green room, right? And for those of y'all, we always talk about there's no script here. We kind of, the first topic we go off of is pretty much, well, the last conversation we had in the green room. And Jay, I want to give you the floor because you said something on your show the other day in regards to a player that is, I don't know that I would consider them must land, but I think they're in the category as close to must land as it can possibly get without being must land. Williams Nwaneri, right? 5-star defensive lineman, top 10 player in the nation, really one of the more intriguing players in this class when we talk about the versatility he provides. I mean, really special talent. Talk to us about where you think Oklahoma is with Nwaneri. He came off of a trip to Georgia that many, including myself, found interesting. So what are you thinking there?
Yeah, so if you jumped on the Sooner or Later show last night, you heard me kind of talk about this. But for those that didn't miss it, the big thing with the Winery piece is he did the unofficial in Georgia last weekend. He spent some time there, and it was on his own. Like it was unofficial, so it was on his own dime. He's at a party for his brother's birthday in Atlanta, and he went up there. And rumor has it he went solo. It was just him. His parents weren't with him. It was him visiting the school, and for him to go on his own dime on an unofficial, show up, visit, few hours, and then leave, and not a single Georgia insider put any type of prediction or anything on it, makes me still confident in the Sooners. Because that, to me, is a sign of, oh, we're about to flip him. That's a flip moment if you get a guy to show up on his own to do that. And no one did. It seems like it's like, oh, we're seeing momentum. We're seeing some traction at direct. Guys, if there was traction, those insiders are not going to waste their time and not put in a prediction. That's a good opportunity, and it didn't work. It didn't work.
That's a really good point. Chris, what are you thinking, man? Because I mean, we've had countless conversations for countless hours on air, off air, in texts. I mean, you name it, we've talked about the defensive line recruiting for the Sooners. What was your thoughts on that?
No, listening to Jay, that's kind of a bombshell for me, honestly, because I mean, if he's going on a solo trip, no crystal balls, different things like that, you make it out of Georgia, that's good. But also, the fact that you're hearing things about, NIL, it's kind of surprising that a year ago or so we were being called a broke school, can't pay our way out of Big 12 to get to the SEC or whatnot, and now you're kind of hearing the opposite as far as what OU is being able to offer as packages, in NIL or whatnot. So it's interesting, man. I think that with Neri, I think Nigel Smith, I think David Stone is OU's to lose. I think those are three names that you're looking at to potentially, well, not even potentially, but to be a part of your class, just waiting for, August and September to get here, ready for the season to get here and to kind of validate those commitments as well with, hopefully a 10-win season at least. But no, as far as I would say with Neri or whatnot, all eyes are on OU. I know people are really intrigued with the possibility of Georgia because just the factory that they become over the past few years. I know some people have really, highlighted the fact that he's tweeting a lot about Missouri, but at the same time, I don't think at the end of the day, I think at the end of the day, those two, I mean, Missouri doesn't compare to what OU, the pedigree that they have, what they're still able to do and be able to produce, and what Georgia's able to do as well. So, I think these OUs to lose. It's just interesting right now. It's a lot of talk right now.
This is actually an interesting question that Dundee's is asking. If you had to only pick one, and Dundee's, there is no wrong answer. I think you could poll 100 different people and you might get it split 50-50. The interior just dog Stone provides, but then the flexibility. Jay, what say you? It's tough.
It is. It is. Give me a second, because I need to think.
For sure.
I gotta think.
Jump back in whenever. Let me know. But Chris, you said something that made me want to talk about this. Something we talked about in the green room as it relates to the defensive line and what wins Oklahoma can get at. A name that OU fans would love, Nigel Smith, right? That's someone you've been in on for a while. Another team that's been in on him is Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
For my recruiting fans in the know, I don't need to break down Larry Johnson's record for you. He is the godfather of defensive line recruiting. Now, for those of you that know me, you'll know I'm about to break down his record because I like to indulge myself. So, if you will, Larry Johnson has had 8 5-stars that he has successfully recruited. 4 of those players have been top 10 players in their respective class. 23 top 100 prospects in their respective class. 34 guys he's won a battle for that are top 150 players in their respective classes. I'm going to end it there because I got tired of counting, if I'm being very honest. Point of the matter is this. Larry Johnson comes and sits down at the table. I don't care if it's Bama. I don't care if it's Georgia. I don't care who it is. The best defensive line coach in the nation, Todd Bates, Bo Davis, Freddie, name them. Larry Johnson sits at that table. Everybody sits up because you just know the pedigree he comes and brings. I mean, he's developing kids. He's recruiting for them. The reason I bring this up in relation to Oklahoma recruiting, you're going to be going up against him. Luckily for Oklahoma, though, not only did they just win a massive recruiting battle over the likes of Miami, Notre Dame, Michigan for Justin Scott, 6'4", 310 pounds, and moves like a cat, which isn't fair. They might double down and get Edric Houston out of Buford. If they do that and land Dylan Stewart, that's a full class now. Opens a lot of possibilities.
No, you're 100% right there. And just competing with Larry Johnson, of course, like you just said, is completely a struggle. And so for me, like kind of like Chris was mentioning about Waneri, man, just the thought of, with everything going on at Georgia, I'm curious to how that truly is going to affect their recruiting going forward.
Good point.
Now, of course, a lot of people are making mention in the message boards of, they think that this is a calculated measure and they're purposely putting negative stuff out there. And I'm just like, no, y'all screwed up. Y'all have done bad things, and it's all coming out because it's a lot of bad stuff. And so I'm wondering if that has any effect on some of these big time players that are trying to go there. I know Kirby and them are they're basically doing damage control as we speak to keep that going. But man, Larry Johnson's walking into Georgia and snatching up Edric Houston would be huge and a massive blow, honestly, not only to Georgia, but to Bama.
No doubt.
That's like
doubt.
We've talked about. That is a Bama stomping grounds. Y'all have owned that for a while. And KJ Bolden he put out a date, right? His date is,
I think his is coming up. I've heard
it's like the
Bama,
12th or something like that.
Big battle for KJ Bolden. Ohio State, another team to watch there. Georgia, apparently Bama likes where they sit, though. I think Bama is a bit closer in that battle than I had originally anticipated, but let's understand this. It is a coin flip at best, and this is a 3-sided coin, and 2 of those other sides are monsters in recruiting. So fair point, Jay. 100% fair point.
So yeah, now the question is going to be and I get this. And this is kind of why I was on pause and I needed to process some stuff in my mind. Was this elite defensive line recruiting has gone the way of elite quarterback recruiting? It's long. It takes forever. It's going to be drawn out. And unfortunately, we got to wait. It sucks. I wish some of these kids would make their decision, but at the same time, they've got a ton of options. And every other week, someone's probably sending them a new NIL offer, and they're sending them a new marketing package. Everybody, because elite defensive line play is so critical in being successful in college football today. Because of the way that these teams play, as fast as they move, you've got to get defensive linemen that can get in that backfield quickly to disrupt these offenses. And unfortunately for all of us, as bad as we want this to be done so we can say, oh, yeah, we won this. A lot of this is going to draw out to National Signing Day. So buckle up. And as Chris mentioned, it's fun talk recruiting, but at the same time, it's frustrating because now we're putting our eye on games. We're on to Arkansas State.
Yeah, no, and that's right around the corner. College football is rapidly approaching. And look, we've talked about the defensive line recruiting over and over and over again. Luckily, we don't have to relegate ourselves just to that. Chris, talk to me. Y'all just got a big time win. 6'6" wide receiver Emmett Jones already flashing his muscles on the recruiting trail, which, guys, this shouldn't come as a surprise. It's July 3rd. I'm concussed, so I had to check the date again. It's July 3rd, and he has 4 wide receivers in the class.
Yeah, no, that actually is pretty big. I mean, he's got some guys. He's got some guys there. Man, look, the 6'6" wide receiver, I like him a lot. I think I said it. Oh yeah, I said it on your show last night, Jay. You know,
yeah.
Look, I look at him more as like a flex tight end, somebody who's possibly going to have to sit a year or whatever, get in there with Smitty, really kind of redefine his body almost. Basically, I see a guy. I don't know. Maybe you guys differ than me. I don't necessarily know he has that top end speed like a Jaden Gibson or whatnot, because I know that would probably be the quickest comparison that you could.
I don't think he has Jaden Gibson speed, but I think he's got a bit more physicality to him, which means he could if he gets bigger, he could transition to tight end and be a really nasty tight end.
I don't see him pushing him to tight end.
Yeah, no, I just think that, and I'm not saying I'm thinking more like a flex tight end. I'm not thinking more of like your traditional tight end, like an H-back, but a guy that causes he's a red zone guy, but also
mismatch nightmare. Yeah,
but I like what I saw from some of the film that I have seen of the kid. I like how he high points the ball and different things like that. But as far as the collection of wide receivers that we've gotten thus far, I like that. I'm really pleased with those wide receivers. However, it's just one of those things, kind of wait and see which guys are going to pop, But he's definitely a guy that early on he looks to have good hands. He looks to be a guy that you can call reliable, right? And the thing about it is that Ty, we talked about this since Levy came on. This is what he's wanting to do. Get a good mix of guys from 5'10" all the way to about 6'6", have tall and short, fast and long athletic receivers out there that can do just about everything. So Levy's getting his guys in there that he definitely wants. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does with them.
Yeah, and I think it's something to be said about, okay, you have a need at wide receiver. Bryant Wesco, I mean, basically every recruiting service in the world was like, okay, Oklahoma's in a great position. And Clemson came out of nowhere. Even the Clemson insiders were saying this staff did unbelievable work with Bryant Wesco and closing that. It helped that Garrett Riley is now the offensive coordinator there. They probably had that relationship. But to lose a battle and then acknowledge this is recruiting, pivot. And to win the battles necessary, get that wide receiver class, it's awesome. It really mirrors another recruiter we're going to talk about when we talk about Texas, Tashard Choice, who, like Emmett Jones, is flexing his muscles on the trail already. 2 running backs for Texas. He's sending it in unless they need him to just come relate to these kids and win battles. He's done great work. So what's next, right? When we're looking at Oklahoma recruiting, before we transition to this next topic, Jay, passing it back to you, who's the name that maybe not commits next, but you think is a really intriguing player people need to watch?
July 8th, Devon Mitchell does his commitment, and I'm anticipating that we'll land that one. There's been a lot of smoke around Miami, and I just don't think it's real. especially if we're talking NIL, because everybody knows that John Ruiz is broke right now, or he ain't got the bread that he did have as the big whale booster. And so if that's the conversation and that's what's in play, I don't see it happening. I think Mitchell follows and plays with his boy Michael Hawkins Jr., comes to Oklahoma, makes it official. His dad is around often. We've seen articles where they talk about that. And I honestly see that he will. I think that that's going to be where he ends up landing. And so I think that's probably the next one. So we've got today's the 3rd. We won't see anything probably till Saturday. That's my anticipation for next. But don't be surprised if something just comes down the line randomly on the 4th of July. Let's just put it that way.
Well, I mean, it seems to happen that way every 4th of July for the past few years. There's just some random commitment that happens, and I really wish he would push that one back. From Alabama, a kid that has ties to the state of Alabama. Alabama needs the tight end position. Oklahoma looks to be in a good position, which hats off to you. That's a phenomenal player you'll be getting, and he has the relationship with the quarterback. So there's a lot of players that we need to watch out for, right? Guys, if you haven't already, and I'm sure anybody in here has, be sure to go check out Texas Homer. Texas Homer, thank you so much for joining us, man. He says this year feels weird because it doesn't feel like there's a ton of true head-to-heads between OU and Texas. And I think it's because OU is in the position where they are, where they're much more hopeful after the year they had, but still realizing like, okay, we're in a rebuilding year. This year is going to be much different. The Red River rivalry will have the quarterback situation, but I think it's just like the acknowledgement of, okay, we're kind of rebuilding, and Texas is coming into this year feeling really good, which gets me to the Freelance Society comment. He says, you think the Texas culture has officially changed for the better? Seems like it. Same coaching staff brought in great talent and lose 0 starters are really too deep to the portal. That was something they didn't lose starters to the portal. And the interesting thing, Freelance, is I would say it is changing. And I think that Bo Davis speech in the bus, like, I love that. Y'all remember that when Bo Davis was yelled at and he was like, this is embarrassing. Mm-hmm. We're not going to do this. That to me was big, man, because it's this admission of the logo on our helmet isn't going to win us games. The logo on the helmet is not going to intimidate the opponent. So we cannot walk onto the field with that thought process. And not saying that was Texas's big problem, but I think you get the point I'm making here. They're working towards changing a lot with the Longhorns, but that's also, Freelance, why I've been really excited for this coaching staff for Texas. And I thought this one was different.
You know, Josh Pate tweeted out, I think it was yesterday or maybe the day before, basically saying, you know, what was the question? What are your thoughts about Sark? And you had OU fans, a lot of OU fans from a lot of, like, you know, I wouldn't say that's it. A lot of followed accounts, right? Basically saying, hey, look, he's a good coach, not a great coach, but what he's done there at Texas, it's been good. He's a good tactician. He knows what he wants. He knows how to recruit. Hell of a recruiter, but it's just, you know, hasn't been able to, you know, still falling short of the 10 wins, right? That's not a knock, not even trying to knock or whatnot. I think Sark's a good coach. I definitely think he's a great play caller. For me, you know, like I told Nick and Steven, hey, wait and see approach, man. Y'all got to go and win a Big 12 championship. It's just not about making the Big 12 championship. It's about winning the Big 12 championship and going from there. So,
and completely fair. And we've had this conversation. If you're telling me right now, I want to wait and see, I completely agree. Adam, you hit the nail. Josh Pate's the best in the business, but I will say this, Adam. If you want some phenomenal college football content, be sure to check out my guy, Texas Homer, makes documentary-style videos. I find myself revisiting a lot of them consistently, especially PK, taking notes on it. Just an unbelievable opportunity to learn. Couldn't recommend the content enough. Guys, if you haven't already, please go over to Homer's channel, subscribe. He does phenomenal work, has the best sources in the business for Texas football as well. So,
Texas, you gotta be careful with Texas Homer though, man. He has like this hypnotic piece to the way his channel works, to where he hypnoptizes you and it gets you stuck there for like
and you'll
an
be
hour
there.
or so.
Yeah. Next thing you know, you're 3 videos.
I don't
deep.
know if I can totally recommend him specifically because of the hypnosis he puts on you while you're there.
I know. My fiance and I one day watched 3 of his videos, and it was just like, I was just supposed to show you the intro. He's a great content creator. KM says, Ty and Jay, I'm not sure if I told y'all, but me and the fiance are expecting.
Congratulations.
Man. That's awesome, man. Congratulations. Hope for the best for y'all. That's always to hear great news.
Love hearing about the babies with the viewers. That's awesome, man. Congratulations. That is that's dope. Great to hear, Cam.
Don't worry about it, Homer. It's only $9.99 now for the promo.
I mean,
it's
just
a discount rate.
Yeah, hit that join button.
Yeah, it's a discount rate.
But no, to answer that question about Texas real quick, I want to jump into that conversation. The culture seems like it's different. It seems like because Sark's experience will help him navigate that, but I don't trust it until I see the consistency. And it's no shade to Texas at all. I say that about every team that starts to show like some growth or show they're making some movement. I need to see the consistency that someone else isn't going to blow it up. Auburn, Ty doesn't like hearing this, but I've seen this with Auburn before. They had some good years. You're like, okay, things turned around. And then they try to frame and blackmail their coach to get him fired afterwards just because they're not winning as fast as they want. If we can see some patience, just like Chris said, get to the Big 12 championship game, win one. If we can see some patience out of the front office or the boosters and let Sark do his job, because he's bringing in great classes consistently, and his classes are better than classes in the past. They're not just skills guys. Yeah. They're really, really looking at trenches. They're going after the positions where they've struggled. Even though Texas has always had some pretty good offensive and defensive linemen, they're getting better ones and they're getting them in better shape. Mm-hmm. And so because of that, I got to see them just stay because it's got to translate on the field. That's the good. It's just as Texas Homer just said, it's got to translate on the field. And when it does that, college football is fun when Texas is good. And it's fun because when OU beats them, it makes it even better on our record. So
spoken like a true rival. I love
it. We said that a while ago, years ago, Ty, when we first started doing these videos together, was that, that's what was missing from the Big 12 all along. It wasn't expanding. It was the fact that Texas, OU for a 6-year stretch, to be honest with you, because there was a time where, TCU, West Virginia, Baylor, they came in and they kind of, had those spells where OU and Texas were down together. But, when OU was on their way, obviously Texas had that 1 year under Herman, but at the same time, you're sitting there just saying like, man, OU and Texas used to be dominant. You used to understand that after that game was played, that had national championship implications on it. Now it's just been a toss-up. It's just been a rivalry game that is, highly respected, but no national championship implications whatsoever on that game, right? So, that's just kind of where we're at. My whole thing is this right here, not a knock, but, regardless of this last year, look, I get it. We're coming off a 6 and 7 year, but you're 13-12 after 2 seasons of Sark. It's got to happen this year, because not only is the expectation there as it is every year with Texas, but you feel that the talent level really matches that expectation, and you feel that the schedule really suits that expectation. So you have to go out there this year and do it, because if you don't do it this year, then I'm not sure when it's going to happen, because, Nick and Steven, even Homer may argue with me on this. I feel like they've had just as much talent there, but they haven't had the developers that they have. I think that's the biggest difference with Texas now, is that they actually have developers. They have guys that have really been students of the game. Obviously, they really poached a lot of coaches from the Alabama coaching tree, which is great. Which
good
is
on
fine.
them, yeah.
And it actually worked out for them. But now is the time to kind of put up or shut up, because if you got to go win. And win a Big 12 championship. Nobody's asking you to go out every week, blow teams out. You can win just like TCU did last year, and that will still be impressive.
Well, 100, and I love how you end that, because the point you end on is something we will get on coaches for, oh, well, they made the college football, or, oh, they didn't make a college football playoff, without acknowledging it's really difficult. In the 4-team playoff, it's really difficult to make the playoffs. And that's why I agree, man. My one, if Texas makes the playoffs, that's great for Texas fans. That's awesome for you. I'd be happy for you. But I don't need you to make the playoffs. If you win a Big 12 title right before you head to the SEC, I'm like, well, if you're a Sark and you're a Texas fan, you got to feel like you got that weight off your back and you can take that breath of fresh air. It's going to be really interesting. But I did want to talk about Texas recruiting, guys, because they had started a little bit slow. About a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, I made a video. And as always in my video, I asked that opening question within about the first 30 seconds. The opening question for that video is, should Texas fans worry about where they currently sit in recruiting? Now, in fairness, I tore the Band-Aid off very early in that video and answered it immediately. No, at the time it was June, way too early for anyone to worry about recruiting. They've gone on a bit of a run. They're now ranked 32nd in the nation with 11 commits, so still plenty of room in the class. But some of the wins they've gotten, guys, really impressive. Daniel Cruz, offensive lineman from North Richland Hills, top 250 player in the nation, one of the top guys at his position. I'm going to tell you a name that fires me up, ma'am. Jordan Johnson Rubel. This dude, watching him play, I had so much fun because he's 5'10", 175, 185 pounds, somewhere around there. 24/7 Sports has it listed. This kid plays with his head on fire. Jay, I don't know if you've seen him play, but he plays with almost little man syndrome, where he's coming to make you feel the consequences of your decision. You want to run a drag? You want to run a slant? Cool. Meet me right here. And he's going to make you feel it. But the thing that really impressed me, 2 plays after he took someone's head off, he was doing perfect form tackles. And to me, that's big, because how many times have we seen guys on the high school level that can take the other people's heads off, and that's all they do? And it works in high school. That's not going to work on Saturdays all the time. It's not going to be what it is. I watched Denzel take people's souls in high school, straight up do heinous things on the football field. You watch him at TCU, don't get me wrong, he's a headhunter. He's one of the best form tacklers you've ever seen at the safety position. That kid right there, man, he can play some football. Number 134 national, number 11 safety, number 23 in the state of Florida. Absolutely loaded. Love this win for the Longhorns. Then they add in Alex January out of Duncanville. So, Jay, talk to me. What do you see about Texas recruiting right now? Homer says they have some big wins coming too. Yeah, I'd imagine, man. I'd imagine, no doubt.
I'm sensing a lot of Texas is about to hit that downward slope of everything. Just the avalanche is coming down. Yeah. That snowball's coming, and I give them mad props. Like I said, Sark and them do a really good job of recruiting. They always have. Well, they have with him coming into staff. All it is now is about executing. And the biggest piece around the execution portion of it is doing the little things during the season. During practices and then preparing it during the season. And that's something that we know that Texas has capabilities of. We've seen it this past year. They've got to just keep tweaking it and let that discipline keep showing. If that discipline keeps showing, man, it's going to be a great year for Texas on the recruiting trail. Of course, they've got bread. They got money. The other thing with them is that they've got staffers that know how to recruit well. And so I can see more things coming down the line. Looking at Colin Simmons, I'm sensing that one's going to be a W in the next few days. Kobe Black has been they've gotten some crystal balls of him going to Texas, which hurts my heart because I was hoping Kobe would come in.
It hurts my heart as well. I wanted him to Bama. He's a beast. He's a beast.
Yeah, and so, but yeah, he's a monster. He's one of those players you like. Yeah, you want that. And his brother playing at O State is even more fascinating to me. But no, Texas has got a lot of wins coming. They should finish with a top 5 class this year, as usual. Now we got to do is see it on the field, and there's no excuse not to at this point.
And as Jacob Wood, your longtime viewer, longtime supporter.
Yeah, Jacob, yeah.
Thanks for being in here. He says, perfectly reasonable to ask Texas to show and not tell. Texas fans want that also. Look, I think there are several different fan bases that feel like this at varying degrees, right? Like if
Right.
we were to create a scale of the show and tell rated 0 to 10, right? We could have varying degrees of how fans feel like this. I think Oklahoma fans at some extent feel like, okay, well, we're coming off of a 6-7 season. We need to show it. I, as an Alabama fan, that team last year was so hyped up, so undisciplined, lost those 2 games. I'm in a position where, no, I got to see it. I
Yeah.
got to see Bama be Bama. I'm not going to crown them, right? So
Right.
there are various teams that have this. Texas A&M, I mean, goodness gracious, they that might be a 10 if we're rating it on the scale of 1 to 10 of they need to show. Hell, they can tell it all they want. They need to show it as well. I don't mind them telling it, but just you got to show it.
Right. Agreed.
Jay, I did want to highlight this guy, man, because he's done unbelievable work. Tashard Choice, 2 running backs back to back, and I'm is this it right here? Okay, let me break down Tashard Choice's history. All right,
Former OU running back.
former OU running back that got hurt, ended up on the bench, and then due to family situation had to transfer closer to home. Goes to Georgia Tech, makes his way from there to the NFL. Unbelievable, right? Super talented. He has been with the Dallas Cowboys, the Washington Commanders, the Bills, the Colts. In his coaching career, he was an intern in 2016 for the Cowboys, a graduate assistant at my alma mater, UNT, right here in Denton.
Mm-hmm.
Then the running back coach in 2018. UNT, excuse me, UNT had a phenomenal running back room in 2018.
Yeah.
Went from there to Georgia Tech, now to Texas, and has been killing it on the recruiting trail. Jarrett Gibson and Christian Clark. What do you think about that hire, man? I think it really proves that these assistant coaching hires, they're big.
Oh no, they're hitting some home runs with these hires and having Tashard Choice coming. I mean, Seth Luttrell gave him a good opportunity, and he showed it at North Texas. Which, shout out to the Sooner there for bringing him in and letting him blossom as a coach. But Tashard Choice knows how to talk to the kids. He's relatable with a lot of them. He's played at multiple programs. He's gone pro. He's worked in the pros. So he knows how to have that conversation with a lot of them. So to me, he's moving up the chart in the top 25 of running back coaches in the country. And the good thing for him is he's got that Texas machine behind him to help with those conversations with a lot of these kids. It's like, hey, we're at Texas, baby. We produce running backs, and you could be the next great one. I mean, you can go down the list from Ricky Williams going into Bijan, down to Bijan with Cedric Benson in the middle. You could mix in all these running backs. Jamal Charles. I mean, the list goes on for who Texas has had in the backfield that have been great. And so now it's the hunt for the next one. And to be honest, that's your pitch. Like, look, I'm coming to you for this reason. You could be the next great Texas running back. You could be the next Bijan, the next Cedric Benson, the next Ricky Williams. I'm coming to you because of that. And that's, I mean, not only is a massive ego stroke for these kids, it's a compelling argument. Like, if I'm coming for you, I'm trying to make you the next great one here. Why don't you come show us that you can be that? That's a high selling point to me, especially even going around the list of other teams that have produced great running backs. It's a good seller. I think that's the selling point for Oklahoma for some of these running backs is look who Oklahoma's produced at running back over the last 20 years.
Goodness. And
how many have been in the league and spent time, not just, a season or two, who's putting in 5 to 7 years, that the hitting the maximum at the running back position in the NFL. How do you, argue against that? And I think that's one that you can do.
Well, on top of this, Homer, he recruited Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yep.
So that guy right there has got an eye for talent. Green says Texas Homer is the best Texas channel on YouTube. He, Nino, Sports Corner, Fanatic Perspective, Lando, Nash, all do phenomenal Texas content. Texas, Oklahoma, all have fantastic content creators. There's a lot of great college football content creators in the sphere, Green. It's really, it's an exciting time, man, to be a college football fan, to be a fan of content creation. So many bright minds coming up, but you are certainly not wrong. Homer is among the top of any fan base anywhere.
Hypnosis, man. See, all of y'all got hypnotized, man. He got you. He got you.
There we go. You're not wrong.
A psychedelic was thrown into y'all's drink or eye or something.
Well, as we close down on Texas, because I have no doubt Texas is about to be on more wins. We need to hit the Crimson Tide. There are several prospects that are on flip alert in favor of Alabama. One such player is a player I gave weeks ago as a must-land prospect for Alabama on the Bama standard, the final whistle. That's DeMarcus Riddick, currently committed to the Georgia Bulldogs, 5-star linebacker out the state of Alabama. And as time goes on, they're chipping away. They want to land this kid. And they look to be in a good position. He's not the only Georgia recruit they're after, guys. They are after flipping a few of those cats that are currently in that Georgia class. Now, will they be able to? I don't know. It's very difficult to recruit against Georgia. Yes, Alabama has gotten wins against Georgia. Sure, no doubt about it. Georgia's on a amazing winning streak. They can just point to the results they've been able to display on the field. They can point to the draft. Alabama can point to the draft. Alabama can do the same, but we have to respect the back-to-back national titles. That is what it is.
One of the few, yes.
It is what it is. Adam, you hit the nail on the head. The other name I was talking about. I love it. Woodward coming. Peyton Woodward. One of the top safeties in this class. Bama is working very, very hard to flip him, and they are working very hard at KJ Bolden as well. So, guys, what are we thinking? Because Alabama is in an interesting position in their recruiting class right now.
I love the fact that Bama has 2 bad seasons, which means 2 losses, which is even more hilarious that we consider those bad seasons. And they just bounce back in the recruiting trail. And you just make it happen. Now you've gotten rid of, honestly, the lame duck that you all had, which was, as much as some people don't want to argue it, it was definitely Bill O'Brien. Things are going to look completely different for you all moving forward. Defensively, the team's going to be probably even better. I know a lot of you don't like Steele. I totally get it. But me and you've talked about it, Ty. It feels like somebody else is going to be pulling the strings, and it's not even going to be Nick Saban.
Yeah.
But still has experience in a Saban defense. So it's not something that you can argue that he can't do, because he did it and was pretty successful doing it. So the defense is going to be fine. It's going to be questions going to be what the offense is going to look like. And I think we've gotten at a point in college football where the defense is slowly getting to where they can't completely carry you. Your offense have to have just enough competence, especially in the run game, to give that defense a break, but they can help lead you to titles. Defense wins championships. We've heard that saying for years. And it does seem like that Bama is focusing on building that. That way, the offense can take its time to figure out Tommy Rees and how he wants to do things with all the quarterbacks and everybody learning his new system, giving them time because they'll have defensive minds that have been doing it together for a while and understand how to get these young players going. So flipping these players, totally can see it happening. I mean, 9 5-stars on the 24/7 composite last year after having a bad season.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Saban ain't done. It ain't over for Saban. It ain't over. We can say it. It ain't.
Chris, before I pass it to you, did y'all hear the interview with Ryan Williams, the 2025 5-star wide receiver? I think he's like the number 2 or 3 player in the nation in that class. He is unbelievable. Currently committed to Alabama. They were asking him about teams trying to use Saban's age to recruit against Alabama. And let's be perfectly honest here. That makes sense. Saban's up there in age. It makes sense that teams would try and whisper in the recruit's age, creating questions. I'm not mad at that. That's recruiting. That's the nature of the game. It is what it is. He said Nick Saban told him he's going to be on that football field until he drops dead. So Ryan Williams laughed. He said, I'm not worried about that. And with Saban, I could see it. It's going to be interesting. Now, Adam Garcia says Riddick, it's between Bama and Auburn. I don't see him sticking with Georgia. Yeah, Auburn would be interesting. I'd lean Bama, but you can't count them out. Chris, talk to me about where you think Alabama sits in recruiting right now. They're currently number 24 in the nation with 10 prospects.
I mean, we did this last year, Ty. I mean, it's the same thing. OU, Texas. I mean, not Texas necessarily, but OU, Bama are sitting there. I think what Bama last year coming into the recruiting ranks was like what number 55.
There was not last season, the season before
Season
last,
before, yeah.
in May or June, they were like 55th in the nation, and people were freaking out. And then that was the year Texas A&M finished number 1, and Bama was right behind them at number 2.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Bama, to be honest with you, I think they sit really well. They're sitting really well. Kind of waiting to see if there's going to be legislation passed with their NIL deals or whatnot as well, because I think that could go a long way too. Because if Alabama's able to, as an institution, and just have more, I guess, less restrictive, legislation around the NIL, then that would probably help a bunch too. But
they've tried to repeal some stuff, but I don't know, and they certainly will now with what Oklahoma has passed and what Texas has passed.
Yeah, no, and because all those states are kind of together on this, anyways. But no, I mean, with Saban still there, when you're looking, when you're looking on, 24/7 on 3. Hell, when you're scrolling through Instagram and you see certain recruits that Georgia's getting, Georgia is heavily recruiting. You're like, okay, well, I bet you Bama somewhere. Georgia gets a commit, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, is he out? Is he safe, or is he not out of the house yet? Because Bama is probably going to want to have a conversation with that kid, especially with those kids being right there, pretty much in their backyard. I think that, like I say, and you'll understand this. I know some people probably won't understand this or probably think I'm trying to, throw shade, but Bama is in a position right now where they're telling players, hey, look, we're just retooling. We get it that, Georgia is the eye candy right now, the SEC, deservingly so. That's great. Look at the classes that they've had in front of them. We've had great classes too, but you got a chance to come out here and let us develop you. And I think now the interesting thing is that, don't get me wrong, you guys had stars on there, Kool-Aid, McKinstry, guys like that. But at the same time, Dallas Turner, you had other guys, but defense last year, in my opinion, in these past 2 years, has been so predicated on Will Anderson that at times it felt like it wasn't that Golding was being out coached. He was just being out schemed. And
he outthought himself.
Yeah, he outthought himself. Like he would do it to himself. You're sitting there saying, "Hey, man, these exotic looks don't make any sense." I get that you're trying to shuffle Will Anderson around, but let him do his thing and let other guys get active on that other side while they're trying to double him. You don't have to put him all over the field. That's great here and there, but you don't have to do that consistently, right? So I think this year you're for me, I think Bama, I don't think the mindset has changed, but I think you're able to say, we have, with Coach Steele, possibly Pruitt coming in next year, which I know that you would love to have Pruitt. I think there's a philosophy change. So I think that spreading the wealth is going to be something that they can really harp on with these recruits as well, and just say, hey, look, we're not predicated on just one guy. We've made guys like that, but we've made a bunch of guys like that. But Bama's defense is great. Not when it's just one guy coming out there in an exotic look. It's whenever that defensive back, your DBs are loaded, your DB room is loaded, and then obviously, like we always talk about, you got a guy right there on the D line in the interior controlling things, and then you got those edge guys as well. So that's what I think, Bama can really hang their hat on if they have to. But at the same time, Nick Saban walks through your door, it's it's serious, as you guys said about Larry Johnson.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Adam asks, who do you think will be Bama's starting quarterback? And Green says Buckner. And look, that's Green. I completely understand what you're saying. They didn't bring him in for nothing. I think that's a completely logical take. I don't believe it will be. I really don't. And I have a few reasons for saying that. Some I don't know. I'll just say this. You're completely correct in the logic with that assumption. That's I get it. Jalen Milroe, the way he's approached this offseason reminds me so much the way Blake Sims approached the offseason when he took over the team, and everybody thought it was a foregone conclusion that was Jake Coker's team.
Mm-hmm.
And Blake Sims, when all the receivers went out to do their work, Blake Sims went with him. And that's the same thing that just happened. All the wide receivers went out to a lab, and are you laughing at the as a Texas fan? I saw that, yeah, and I was trying to keep it together as well. That was funny, yeah. Go ahead,
the
Jay.
Buckner piece. See, I think it should. I think it should be Milroe, but I can see how Buckner can edge him for only one reason. Just like Green mentioned, they brought him in there because he knows the system and it'll be easy for him to adapt and quickly play.
True.
Now you just mentioned Milroe's taking this seriously. he ain't playing. It's ain't no joke for him. And if he gets this offense down just enough to prepare for that Texas game and do well, he ain't losing that job. That job's his.
Here's what I have to say about that question right there. To be honest with you, this is going to be an open battle going into probably week 3, to be quite frank with you. I think that Nick Saban's not necessarily, he may no. I stand by what I said. He's not even going to have a soft starter slotted in there. I bet you he comes out there and he probably has what's one of the kids' names that you guys just took in this past cycle?
Dylan Lonergan. If we're talking about a true freshman coming through, Dylan Lonergan looked good.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's the other freshman that he has as the as a starter.
Eli Holstein. Yeah,
Eli Holstein. I wouldn't be surprised if it's him. Simply because that's what Saban does. Saban is not. I don't think Saban's going to name a starter. I think he's going to have. I think what we have on our hands is another Tua Jalen situation going into the season where he never named a starter at all during that season. Tua just took the first team.
Fair.
I think that's probably the best comparison that we have, the best example, that we have. So I don't think he's going to name a starter, quote unquote, until around the 3rd game of the season. Get me past Texas, and then I'll tell you who the starter will be each game.
And frightening. I wanted to wait until you actually came in here. We haven't even talked about that point yet. That's going to be what we end on because I wanted to talk about that. I told you we would, but kind of winding down. And Jay, I'll pass to you right after. All the Bama wide receivers went to work at this lab in Florida. Jalen Milroe went with them, and he put in good work. He really wants this. Now, someone asked if I thought. Dundee's asked, do we think Quinn Ewers remains the starter the entire year? If he doesn't get hurt, yeah. I mean, I think that's the only thing that really derailed his season last year. The kid's got ability. That's never a question with Quinn. Or do you think Arch gets a shot? And I think the chat has aptly answered Malik Murphy is a monster.
Look.
Monster.
We're talking monsters. Of course, I don't ever want Malik Murphy to see the field until after October 7th. After October 7th, I'm good with him hitting the field, but and then I want him to start forever. But seriously, on a for real note, I don't understand why they're not trying to figure out how to put that man on the field right
Quinn
now.
Must be that man. And I hope he is. Because I got to watch him play several times at South Lake, so I do root for the kid. But you can't ignore. I mean, Malik is a monster. They've got a good situation.
That picture's stupid. That picture is stupid. Like, he's not even real. Like, that's you know what that picture reminds me of? Derrick Henry standing next to Mark Ingram. That's what that picture reminds me of. When we saw Derrick Henry and them pass standing next to Mark Ingram, and you look at Mark Ingram, you're like, wait, are you like 5'5", 5'4"? 160 pounds, and Derrick Henry's like towering over him like he's freaking the mountain from Game of Thrones. That's what Malik Murphy looks like compared to all those other quarterbacks. He's huge.
He's a monster.
He's a ginormous human being, and I don't understand why they're not trying to figure out how to get that man on the field immediately. That's a 2-year starter.
Yeah, look, I know when he came in, he dealt with a lot of adversity.
He
coming
did.
out.
I don't know it was injuries and all that. I'm just saying. You figure out a way. You put like he looks like a cyborg. So you just add additional parts to him and just let him go on the field. You put his robotic arm back in, his robotic leg back on, and let him go. So no, yeah, I know about the injuries. I'm just saying.
Oh no, I was even talking.
No, I'm talking about the chats. That Shadow mentioned in the chats is why he was injured. I know that. My point is just put the robotic leg back on and let him go out there. Like that's what we do.
He had that COVID year.
He's like a Pacific Rim type guy.
RJ says, Buckner, if you want me to be completely honest with you, is not a guy. Probably going to be an insurance policy for Milroe because of his play style. Yeah, he fits into the scheme, no doubt, RJ. I mean, which makes sense. It's Tommy Rees's going to be his adaptation to the Alabama offense. But I think my biggest thing with Buckner is, and Des, you were talking about what Buckner did at Notre Dame. If you're ever bored, Des, go watch that Notre Dame versus South Carolina bowl game again. And the reason why I'm saying watch it is because Buckner will make a throw or two that your jaw will drop. And you'll be like, I didn't know he could do that. The problem is the play immediately after, or the drive immediately after, he's going to make a throw and you're going to be like, oh, got it. I get why this is up. It's a really weird situation. Okay. So you know exactly what I'm talking. He'll make some throws where your jaw drops. He had one throw where the South Carolina edge was draped on him and he sidearms a 35-year-old or 35-yard rope on a dime. I mean, I couldn't have walked it to the receiver any better. A few plays later, he throws that 106-yard pick six where the guy didn't even move. He just stood there and said, thank you. I'm gone. Yeah, he didn't move. So 100% fair play, Des. Fair play, 100%. But let's get into this NIL conversation before we get out of here, because I told Frightening we'd talk about it. Chris, I want you to talk with us about your interpretation of these NIL laws. Texas's was just passed. I sent us over the legislation as it was most recently worded. What are you thinking, man?
No, I'm looking at it right now. I mean, like I said, before we came on here, is eerily similar to the one Oklahoma just passed. It may be a little bit expanded, but like you said, I mean, we're talking about a carbon copy, honestly. And like we said a while ago when we did an NIL episode together, we said it. Look, all it takes is one state to really make the move on doing something like this, whether it's in California, Alabama, Oklahoma, or Texas. You're going to start seeing these copycat legislation come out, and I think that's what happened. I think it helps because now the use of the third party entity, as they're calling it, that really opens it up for just about any and everybody to really get into this, including Texas as the institution, Texas A&M as the institution, who it really helps in the grand scheme of things, because Texas and Texas A&M at the end of the day are going to be in the SEC and they're going to be going at that. Don't get me wrong, that helps them as well, kind of, be a little bit even more greedy with it. And I use greedy in a good way, but it helps teams like Houston and Baylor, but Houston especially, because I think Houston is more willing to kind of take risk with NIL, especially if their state is actually backing it and giving them protection from the NCAA or any other kind of like federal statutes or whatever that could, possibly come out to where they can fight that. But at the end of the day, like I said, I think that it is it's good. It's a good day in Texas. It's a great day in Texas, honestly, because it just makes it more expansive. Now it kind of, also, I'll be real with you, it helps Texas A&M as well, because now it kind of legalizes some of the stuff that they're still trying to do, that you're like, hey man, you don't have to do that. It's not illegal anymore. But at the end of the day, when I look at these laws or whatnot, it's just crazy to see how expensive it's becoming. One of the things that is really exciting about it is that, these kids, their family members get to actually get into it. That means that, now these dads, these moms, all the rest of them can actually act as what they have been acting as, which are agents, right? And the cool thing about it is that, each state has, laws or whatnot. Like I think Oklahoma, to be able to represent somebody, you got to pay like $1,000, $2,000 like every year or every other 2 years. Texas is the same way. Some places is like $30 to have like a license or whatnot, to be able to, be like a full-fledged agent for somebody. But now they're kind of giving it more of an expansive role to where these third party entities, as they're calling it, these guys can now come in and just kind of establish the guidelines, kind of the rubric for whoever they're quote unquote representing or whatnot. So it's definitely interesting, man. It's going to take on a life of its own. And just looking at this legislation now, they're not done. They're going to continue to add stuff to this. I think this is just really this is the preface for something bigger that's going to come down the line. And especially if the SEC is able to make themselves into a super conference, I think that you start seeing these type of bills expand even more, because if you become your own super conference and you make the NCAA totally obsolete, then these governing bodies, or whatever governing body that the super conference would have, or the mega conference would have, is going to be more lenient towards whatever legislation your state wants to pass, just because they want to make a sport out of that too.
Yeah, and truth to you stated about how the similarities between the bills, we are going to reap the rewards of moving to the SEC and a huge budget differences. I think that a lot of teams are going to be looking at the wording, at what Oklahoma has done, at what Texas has done, and that's going to be a common theme moving on. Because right now, this puts Texas in an interesting position in NIL. And Jay, I'm going to pass it to you before I keep going, because I'm interested in hearing your perspective on this as well.
Yeah, I was just digging through it and listening to Chris talk about the legality behind all of this. And I think the thing that jumped out to me that's kind of fascinating is, well, one, they're requiring that the student athletes go through financial literacy and life skills courses. That's awesome and all or whatnot. And they got to have at least 5 hours in duration, including information on financial aid, debt management, time management, budgeting, blah, blah, blah. All the stuff that you're supposed to learn in college anyway. So it's perfect. Makes sense. It's what you're supposed to do, right? Especially with these coaches being what they call themselves, leaders of men. If they're leaders of men, this is something that they should definitely take as a serious thing and make sure to help guide their students there. But this is what jumped out to me when I read through this. Chris is right. This is very much similar to what Oklahoma is doing as a state with the NIL bill. And also, it's really telling the NCAA, piss or get off the pot.
Yep.
Pull up. We dare you. We double dog, we triple dog dare you, no Sykes. Pull up. We want you to show us that you are going to do something. We dare you. Go ahead. Because we're just going to say everything you say is obsolete. And so the NCAA is going to have to figure this out. They can't rely on Congress. They're going to have to figure this out and try to at least work with all of these states and make some sort of a blanket deal and make it, good legislation. And the other thing in this is that a charitable organization exempt from taxation under the section code 501A and as an organization described by section 501c3 of that code may compensate student athletes for the use of the student athlete's name, image, and likeness. Man, it sounds like there's going to be some money laundering through this piece. Because think about it. If you just create a 501c3, you take donations and you don't actually take profits, and you make sure you spend every dime every year, and you just pass that on to the as a marketing piece for whatever the charity is supposed to be. I don't know. I'm not saying money laundering is happening. I'm just saying that to me is a slippery slope going into the 501c3 space. Because what that does is it allows for donors to donate and write it off on their taxes.
Well, and it's interesting you say that, because I think
they've been doing that already though.
Well, that's the thing. In the recent tax code, it's changed to where donations to schools for athletic type stuff no longer can be written off. That's where I'm thinking this is interesting.
Well, and also there was I don't know if, God, I had the tab pulled up here and I've since changed it to a different tab. I was reading something and they were talking about how a lot of some of this thought process has come from A&M hearing from the IRS about the way the NIL was structured and their attorneys trying to figure out the tax law between all of this, because every day is setting precedent here. I mean, we have nothing, which is why, Chris, I'm always so interested. Oh my gosh. That's pretty good. The Wagner Group of 501c3 in Russia. They might as well be, man. I'm not even going to start on that. I was a political science major out of college, so I'm not even You will not get me to stop talking about that. But the thing that I think is so interesting about all of this is it gets us back to NCAA versus Alston, right?
100%.
Jay, you hit the nail on the head. They're daring the NCAA. Truth, if you're still in here, to me, whenever I saw that line that says no entity can basically punish Texas for doing this. So the NCAA can't punish them. The Big 12 can't. The SEC can't. To me, I instantly thought of this line right here. And for those of you that have been longtime viewers, Jay and Chris, I apologize in advance. You've heard me say this several times, but it's pertinent and it needs to be understood. It needs to be talked about because it's setting precedent. Justice Kavanaugh wrote in NCAA versus Alston, and I quote, "Nowhere else in America can a business get away with agreeing to not pay their workers a fair market rate on the theory that their product is defined by not paying their workers a fair market rate. And under ordinary principles of antitrust law, it is not evident why college sports should be any different. The NCAA is not above the law." Texas, Oklahoma, A&M, they are begging. They are begging for the NCAA to say, no, don't, because then they can open up litigation and then they have to deal with this.
I don't necessarily think that they're begging or they're daring them to do anything. I think what they're doing is bypassing them. And
no, they are. You're right.
No, they definitely are. Yeah.
We're not worried about what you're going to do, because the thing is that, I was telling a friend this today because we were talking about some NIL, another law bud of mine. And I basically told him, I said, the problem for the NCAA is this right here. I've said it to you a bunch of times. This was all this was sprung about as a knee-jerk reaction that has turned into a monster of its own.
Yes.
And the fact of the matter is that states like Texas, now, like I said, it only takes one state to do it. So now a lot of other states are going to start copying this, and then you're going to see other states just expand to have this language. What happens now is that yes, Texas can go out there and have this fairy tale season. They can have this fairy tale season and go 12-0, win a national championship.
He almost didn't troll.
And then have 30 infractions, right? And then NCAA, pertinent to this NIL stuff. Then what happens? The NCAA sues them, and what is held up in with the Supreme Court. It's held up in court for a year, 2 years, 3 years, this litigation. And they're saying, hey, we want you guys to vacate wins. We want you guys to vacate this, to vacate that, vacate the title. It doesn't happen, because you'll go X amount of many years. And if Texas really has the money that they say, then they'll fight tooth and nail and just go from there, because neither side will have to. Because the thing is that, do we believe that the NCAA is a $1 billion industry, but do we believe that the NCAA, do we think that Texas has enough? Do we think Texas has enough money to go up against them and stay with them? And I do. I really do. I think so, because when you're in court, it's just different, man. When you're in litigation, it's just different, because there's all types of stages to the case, and there's all types of tactics that you can use to, basically have foul play. You can hide behind the statutes and all the rest of that. People want discovery. People want this. People want that. You don't have to give it all just right then and there. You can maybe take a penalty, right? So it's chess while others are playing checkers. And what are you going to do? But when you're bypassing the NCAA, you're basically taking them out of it. You're making them obsolete. And the thing is that if the NCAA is running the risk of being locked, basically landlocked, and surrounded not by water, but just by all this litigation from all these states. So Indianapolis, and just being locked in litigation, like extreme litigation with several states and institutions under that.
So to your point, Chris, that's exactly what me and Ty is saying, is that they're daring the NCAA to sue them, because here's the problem. The NCAA can sue Texas, right? They can sue the state of Oklahoma. They can sue any of these states. The problem they're going to run into is that it's not even about money. You don't have to have money to outduel the NCAA in this situation, because the minute the NCAA tries to sue on this, they're going to start getting lawsuits about employment, about employees. They're already dealing with that. They are terrified right now that once a players union starts, they're going to get destroyed and ripped up because the Supreme Court's not going to vote against it, because they've already proven that they can't self-govern, because the whole premise of their product is that their consumers want them to not pay the athletes playing in the sports. That is literally their argument, and it's not going to work. And so if the NCAA tries to sue Texas and them, they're going to, of course, they're going to go countersue, but then they're going to start getting all these lawsuits of employee stuff and be like, hey, remember the Supreme Court said this about what y'all was doing antitrust? Let's go ahead and accelerate that. And that all does nothing but hurt the NCAA. So the NCAA right now, they're shaking in their boots because they can't do anything. They can't say nothing. They can't push back. But Oklahoma and Texas is saying, we want you to, please. Because what it will do is it will create uniform across the country, but it's not uniform that the NCAA wants. They hate the idea of that. And once that uniform comes down the line, oh boy, NCAA is probably going to end up being obsolete. They know it. And that's why everybody is daring them. They're saying,
to be honest with you, the NCAA is already obsolete, because the thing is that if they would have actually got up off their asses and did something like, Ty, we talked about this wouldn't be a problem. Fact of the matter is that this was something that was coming all along, but you had here's my problem with the NCAA, just like my problem is with a whole bunch of organizations, not to get too political, but when you have, let's say, I don't know how many people they have on the board, but let's say you have 64 people on the board, right? If me, Ty, and Jay are driving around, right? We're riding around in my car, and Jay says, "Hey, yeah, man, hey, let's stop here at Burger King and get something." And Ty says, "Nah, I don't want Burger King. Let's go to Subway." And I say, "Nah, let's do something better than that. Let's go to Charleston's or something like that, right?"
Right.
All three of us are there, right? We've been arguing for 30 minutes, and then we're finally like, damn, I'm hungry. Okay, where do y'all want to go, right? We're still there because nobody has stepped up and taken that leadership role to actually say, hey, this is what's going to happen. We're going here. We're going to get food from here, and we're going to be cool with that, all right? So, I mean, that's kind of the problem. When you have that many people on the board, or that many people who have a hand in trying to make a decision, it's hard because it's just too many hand checking and too many checks and balances in the NCAA. It doesn't need to be a dictatorship or whatever the case may be, but at the end of the day, there needs to be one person that we look to, not 30 different, subdivisions within the NCAA as an organization that we're trying to answer to. And that's been a problem all along, is that you don't have one person that and what have we been talking about for the longest? Not only as commentators on this, not only as creators on this, but what have we been talking about as a collective, as these Big 12 and the ACC and the SEC and all, and the Big 10 or whatnot. I've been talking about having one governing body, like not body, but one governor, a governor over a commissioner.
It's almost like if the NCAA would have done what they were supposed to do in the first place, it would have been solved.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem. Then they would have to admit that they need to start paying these players like they're employees because of what they do.
They've overcomplicated this to the max. This never had to happen, but you had to be willing to, one, show tolerance for the conversation, be able to tolerate even entertaining the conversation, and then you had to be willing to try to make some type of amends. Going as far as saying that all players, college athletes will be able to eat free on campus, that was not enough. That was not enough.
Well, so here's something interesting. I always point to Kavanaugh's take on this, but it's another Justice Neil Gorsuch said that this was something that needed to be changed as well. Justice Kavanaugh adding on, and it's an important and overdue course of correction. And Chris, I'll never forget when this happened. And I do think this is important to note. NCAA versus Alston occurs 9 days later. All of a sudden, they know how to do NIL. Important to note, there are no guidelines to what they roll out. It's basically Pandora's box. No state, there was no uniformity in their NIL plan. It was basically allow states to have their own sovereignty, which in theory, the first second of thought sounds fantastic until you realize what Anthony, and I'm going to answer this, Anthony. I'm so sorry. I've already started the comment. That way I'll come back to it. It's just we were deep in an NIL conversation. I wanted to let that ride. Something he talks about, that states like Florida, California, Texas, they have unlimited money. Like UT, A&M, they have got so much money. What's the tipping point, right? Like where do we try and make this fair? That's what the NCAA didn't even think about. And that's why I think Texas, OU, these states are doing this, because at this point they're like, okay, we know that the Supreme Court doesn't like your antitrust structure. Try us. You failed to set precedent, and now it's our job to look out for our best interests. It's not Texas's job to look out for the best interest of Georgia or of Florida. It's their job to look out for their best interests. And now I think a lot of states are going to be copying the legislation out of Oklahoma, are going to be copying the legislation out of Texas and adopting it as their own. This is a wild time, guys, and everything that comes up is going to be setting precedent.
Not to get too politically savvy on here or anything like that, but isn't it funny when like federalism works? Like when the states actually got to take it on their own to actually enact certain legislation that is pretty much the same, but and is becoming uniform day by day, but when they take it upon themselves to actually act and then say, okay, well, if you want something to go over our head, you're going to have to actually go to the Supreme Court, which I think honestly, this is where it's all headed. I think the NCAA, to be honest with you, NCAA wants to save face. They don't want to become obsolete. If they want to try to beat this and turn it on its head, they have to go to the Supreme Court, and they have to pray to God that they find merit in what their argument is going to be. That's the only way the NCAA will be able to get control of this, and I don't think it's going to happen. And I think that's the reason why because the thing is that in NIL, because I'm studying it from afar, because there's all types of opportunities, especially for attorneys, right? But I'm studying it from afar. This is the wild, wild west right now. There's not too many laws about this, or at least like restrictive laws. And what I mean about that is laws you can enforce upon somebody and say, hey, you're doing something illegal. What we're doing right now, we're trying to define it to the point where we know who all and how all these people can factor into this to help, promote, and to make money, right? But we're not at the stages yet, in my opinion, where we're actually able to punish somebody for that. And now you have people, a state like Texas going so far to say, no, you can't mess with us. So that's where we're at. And it's funny because, like I said, it's the wild, wild west. Like there's no really real legislation in there telling you what you can and cannot, what you can't seriously do. There's some things in there, but it's really lighthearted stuff that you can kind of, put your foot on, right? You can cross that line a little bit and go right back, There's nothing that's really extensive out there. So that's what is really interesting to me, is how do you continue to add to this marble layer cake?
No doubt. And I'm going to answer this, and then I think we'll get out of here. We've been going for just about an hour and 15 minutes. Anthony has been asking, Ty, do you think that if these super conferences get as big as we project them to get, the bigger states like Florida, California, Texas, and Pennsylvania are going to get the majority of the NIL budget? Anthony, I think that a lot of the states that you mentioned, like Florida, right? I think that if we look at the actors and the powers that be at like a Miami, Ruiz, right? Like if Ruiz wants, and if his businesses are doing well, he's going to throw money around. The Florida NIL collective is very interesting because they had the whole Rashada situation, and the court of public opinion pulled up that they had a bad NIL collective. I don't think that's the case. I think there's a lot more to that Rashada situation than is at surface level. And I think a great way to tell that is they currently have a 5-star quarterback in their class. So if their NIL was that bad, I don't think that Lagway would still be there. So and I've gotten to talk to guys such as High Top, great content creator out of Florida. Would highly recommend checking out his content. He's an interesting content creator, almost like a Twitch streamer meets what we do. I mean, he's fantastic. Love watching his stuff. Couldn't recommend it enough. But to more poignantly answer the question, Anthony, I think the states that already have the ability to do so will do so, right? Like, I think that's why Texas had the pancake factory where they were paying all their offensive linemen. I can't remember the exact amount. We'll call it X thousands of dollars because they have the collectives to throw this money around, right? I mean, you saw Texas paying enough as much for offensive linemen in their NIL collectives as some schools were offering in its entirety, which good for them if they can put it together and they can get together a collective that can legally get it done. That's what the name of the game is now. That's a part of college football. So much as recruiting is a part of football. It's something we all have to respect at this point. So the teams that are going to want to throw around money, they're going to throw around money regardless, right? They're going to go throw around money. And it's going to be very interesting to see. And JW, I don't think that it's Saban's complaining. We also have to realize where that thing got brought up again. He was speaking to boosters again, right? Saban's not complaining. He's fighting for his boosters to cough up money because he realizes what it is.
Basically telling them, wake the bleep up.
Yeah.
This is happening. And if you want this to continue to ride, you know what you need to do.
Yeah.
Hey.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, man, it's getting crazy over here in this chat, man. You need to go ahead and you need to speak peace over this chat.
No point in speaking peace. Let them be who they be. Just leave it alone. I just ignore it personally, but
let them eat cake.
I digress. Yeah, let them eat cake.
No, I'm just messing with
but no, to be honest, I had one thing. Last thing I want to say that fascinates the hell out of me about any conversation with this NIL stuff and all of this. That people that have issues with it are bothered that rich people want to give money to kids and get absolutely zero benefit from it. Like, what's your real benefit from all of this NIL money going out? Bragging rights? Like, that's it?
That's where we're at.
Woo! That's
where
cool.
we're at.
But it's funny because, like, but this is how boosters always been. They've dropped out bags of cash to get players, and it's like, what are you getting from this? It's the most fascinating thing in the world that people just like to just burn money on kids just for the hell of it. It's like what are you getting from it? Just bragging rights. A front row seat, a front row parking spot at the stadium on game days. But that's it.
Unbelievable what rich people do with their money, man.
It's just so funny to me. That's my favorite part about talking about NIL and stuff. It's like, we're really talking about rich people just burning their money just for the hell of it.
Hey, if y'all know any of those rich boosters that are throwing around NIL money, tell them that I'll take an NIL deal for Around the Table Sports. You know what? Let's facilitate an NIL deal for Chris J and I. Hit them up and we'll put together a package.
Look. You know, NBA players are getting $260 million, but you got to see the breakdown. Check out Andrew Petcash on Twitter. Look at the breakdown. Guys, look, NIL, I'm just going to say this right here. Why are you paying an agent that much money whenever you can actually see all of your money if you come talk to a guy like me? I'm an attorney. You can try.
Go.
You see what I'm saying?
Hold on. If you're going to drop, I'm an attorney, you can trust me, you got to do it in a more trustmental way. Like, I automatically don't trust you. I've been working with you for a year, and I automatically don't trust you because of the way you said that. Now I trust you less. That wasn't going to win my trust.
Hey, all my Auburn fans out there, y'all can trust me for sure.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh. I think I'm done. No. Time to wrap it up.
Oh, no.
Wrap it up, B.
Mark, thank you so much. He says he's tuning in. Where is this comment? Did it already? Jeez.
Japan,
Mark,
yeah.
Where are you at from Japan, Mark? That's awesome. Hey. Thank you for giving us your time while you're in awesome country. That's great to see. Guys, it's been an hour and 20 minutes. It's been a ton of fun. I said this in a post on the community page of my channel. Content in the month of July for me is going to be a little bit all over the place. I'm going to have some stuff pre-recorded this week. But I get married on Saturday. We leave for the road trip and the honeymoon very shortly after, and we're taking a cross-country road trip. So I'm going to be out of commission for about 2 weeks. So I'm going to be missing commitments. I'm going to be missing the whole 9 yards. I'm going to be as up to date as I can. But
me and Jay will take over the channel until you get back, man. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, there we go.
Magic happen.
There we
go. A lot of Auburn content, but we'll make it through.
Yeah. And We'll talk about this. Whenever I come back, we'll kick this off. I'm actually gonna save this comment that way. We'll kick this off. We'll do a game. We'll do something where we talk about this. But until then, Chris, Jay, tell the people where they can find all of your great content.
Hey, Horns Down Pod on Twitter. Chris with a K on Twitter. Frightening, what's up, man? You know what, Frightening? Hey, look, this is an invitation, man. You and me. You and me. Nobody else, not Jay, not Ty. You and me. All right. I want to invite you on my show. Okay. You and me.
Oh God.
Just you and me. Texas OU. Let's get it.
You don't have to entertain him, Truth. It's okay.
Let's do it. All right. So Frightening, that's all I gotta say. All right. Y'all know where to find me at. Hit me up for Frightening. Hey, look, the invitation is open, man. You got until Texas plays Bama to accept. If you don't, I think you're a coward.
Oh gosh. Jay, I'm gonna pass it to you. That's
y'all want to find me, Jay Smith, Unfair Sports. Search for me on YouTube as well as on Twitter. This is hilarious. He just challenged Frightening to a duel on.
That's how you know Truth
YouTube
has
Live.
Been around this channel forever.
Wow,
that's how
he
know.
Got so far underneath him that he challenged him to a duel. I'm gonna watch, of course. So the minute it happens, just keep me posted.
Truth's been around here forever. Guys, everybody in chat, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for all the support. We are in July, and there's 115 people at an hour and 20 minutes in, and we're just talking random college football. You guys are killing it. Thank you for all the support. Be sure to go show love to the Horns Down podcast. Be sure to go show love to Unfair Sports, and we will be back before you know it. Until then, we'll see you. And now the spinning wheel of doom.
Texas
Don't say
sucks.
it. And of course he said it.